That's what we're about. Tune in for direction. Let your spirit shout. Unlock your power. Face what you've been through. Heal that trauma. Make yourself anew. Stronger from within. Oh yes, you can be. Open up your heart and set your spirit free. Blessings we can quantify.
Hey.
Hey, what's happening? What's happening?
Hey, everyone.
Hey there. So, good weekend, yes?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yes.
That
Awesome
is
weekend.
awesome. Looks like Joe DeRoe has finished gallivanting all over the world.
For right now.
Had him a little break there. I'm so jealous. You don't even understand the level of jealousy I have. But I guess we can go ahead and get started. Welcome to the HEALn HELPDesk, episode 11. Trauma from the Unexpected is our series, this spin around the block. And tonight's episode is based on a viewer question. So we've named it Clocked In and Shut Down. It's regarding the emotional exhaustion from the workplace. So we've got a specific viewer question. So I'm going to read the question I got here. It says, hey, HEALn HELPDesk, can y'all talk about what happens when you're constantly overlooked in meetings or cut off when you're trying to speak? I've been at my job for years and it feels like no one values my input unless someone else repeats it. And I don't even recognize my own voice anymore. Can this kind of dismissal cause long-term damage to my confidence and my mental health? I would love to hear y'all break this down. Whoa.
Yes,
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Ooh,
that's huge. That's huge. Yes.
So that is definitely trauma in the unexpected. I guess a lot of times when we talk about our experiences at work, we don't think of it as trauma, I guess depending on the degree of what it is we're suffering. But
Right.
we don't really, oftentimes, at least I have not thought about it as trauma until I began to learn more and more and more about ways that trauma shows up from the unexpected and, just everyday walks of life. When you hear trauma, Joe, what's the first thing you think of?
It's just a lot of the unexpected especially when it comes to the workplace, you can get traumatized just due to different personalities that are confronting you and attitudes. And this could be very traumatizing because you're not expecting all this to happen, especially in the workplace. You think, hey, I'm going to just clock in and be fine and all, but it just sounds like you're going through a lot and it's very traumatizing to your peace. I'll say that.
And we're going to put a marker here. I'm going to pause and not marker ends. All right. So, Joe, when you hear the word trauma, what does it make you think of?
It makes me feel like you're going through a lot of stuff, or you have went through a lot, and it's feeling like either your environment is very traumatizing, as in maybe the actions of people or the personalities are clashing, and it's not really cohesive environment. That's where I get when I hear trauma. It's something that's very traumatizing to your soul.
Yeah. How about you, Antoine? When you hear the word trauma, what
Well,
comes to your mind immediately?
immediately it's like blood everywhere. Somebody is hurt, somebody's injured. Um, that's, where trauma, I guess when I first hear the word trauma, I'm thinking like somebody is seriously hurt. But as I, of course, grow to know and being in this space, I know that trauma can occur from all types of situations.
Yeah, and I think when I hear trauma, it's kind of the same thing, right? Like somebody has been injured by someone or some event in life has happened that is just highly, highly emotional, impacting or impactful emotionally is what I think. And oftentimes there is a need for some sort of mental or emotional recovery. but I can't say that I equate the word trauma with work. But I feel like in some instances, and I know I've worked in some environments where that is the absolute perfect explanation or the perfect word to describe the culture and climate in that particular organization. Have you guys had anything like that, like what the viewer is describing, just being in a place where you feel like you're unheard, you're not really being seen, or worse, you've got a micromanager or a narcissistic, mean, you know, boss that is impactful in a way that affects you mentally, emotionally, when you're in the workplace and after you've left?
I haven't. I've had similar experiences, um, but I think that one of the key things is speaking up sooner than later, right? And I don't know what if she has spoken up before. I know she says that when she's talking, she gets cut off. Um, and sometimes I know for me as a person, I've had a difficult time stepping up to the plate because I don't want to embarrass other people. But my delay in response always comes back and bites me in the rear. And so nipping stuff in the bud um, quickly, it can be abruptive. However, it can stop things from occurring later on or continuing in that realm. Sometimes you can step off the scene and say, "Hey, I need to pull you to the side and have a crucial conversation and talk about your thoughts and your feelings, and making sure that you have the attention of the person that you need to speak to in regards to that feeling. If it's the whole group as a whole, then you of course have to address the whole group. But normally it's a leader, or you can bring it to a leader, and then that can hopefully resolve the problem.
And for me, yes, I have had trauma at probably multiple jobs. Not saying it's what I go out and like, hey, I think I'll go to a job and being good, I'm doing my thing. And it's like I say, it's the clash, it's the personalities, because you're coming to a place that you don't know anybody, and you're coming with the mindset, yeah, I'm here uh, to learn how they work through the workflow, and just proceed and process things at your job, or it could be, yeah, I'll say at your job and stuff. So I have had higher management do some wild things before, and it has, I don't say it traumatized me, but it made me be like, oh man, what is going on? And I s- I will say at that point I couldn't really nip it in the bud, like you said, Anton. 'Cause I would love to, because when you're brand new, it's like, man, you don't want to say nothing out of turn, because then you're it's kind of like you're expecting like a retaliation, so to speak. So that's another thing that is also could be very traumatizing. Is like you want to say something, but now you got to think about, oh man, am I gonna get is a retaliation coming my way? But yeah, it's the workplace. I'll say is the main spot full of trauma.
Whoa, not the main spot. I think there, and I also believe that maybe there are some industries that are higher or more prone to uh, toxic culture or toxic environment. Like I used to work at a large corporation whose name I will not say, because if we ever make any amount of money, I don't want to be sued. But it was in a stock brokerage firm, and I can tell you that that stock brokerage floor, uh, traumatizing, toxic. Oftentimes, I found in certain sales environments, highly toxic. Uh, but the one thing that we didn't do before we get too far down the road, because we did go into our topic, let's intro ourselves so they know who we are and where to find us, and then we can kind of dive into how we're unpacking how being overlooked and interrupted and dismissed at work is not just frustrating and not just annoying. In some cases, it is outright traumatizing, depending on the circumstances, your role in the company, and the issue. So, check us out, Heal and Help. Our website address is healing.help. That is it. There is no .com. So, check us out, healing.help. I am also on every social media platform as, well, not just me, Heal and Help in its entirety, because you won't find Jay the Heal Chemist. You will find healing_help on all platforms.
And I'm just Antoine, and I'll go ahead and go. And I'm with Adrulix. I'm the COO of Adrulix and founder. And you can find me on social media as Adrulix as well, and just Antoine for YouTube. And so we are excited about just being here and being able to help and bring clarity to situations that we face on a consistent basis.
There you go. It's the wrong button. And I'm Joe DeRoe. I'm with Heal and Help. I'm the researcher, the man with many hats, and I'm here to help you along your journey.
Definitely the man that wears many hats. So, I wonder if you guys know that research shows that social rejection and physical pain activate similar regions in the brain, specifically the anterior cingulate cortex. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So when someone is ignoring a person, or ignoring your contributions, your body registers it as harm. And um, when we are thinking about being reprimanded, disrespected, ignored, overlooked in social settings, it's not only communicating to you that you don't matter and that your input is not valued, but it subliminally delivers that message to those around you. And you'll find that sometimes other people will begin to treat you in that way. It's almost like bullying on the job. And not that people are, there you'll have people that will set out and legit follow that model, especially if it is a manager that is the person that is overlooking you, or disrespecting you, or discarding you in essence, if they're narcissistic. But you can feel like you are being targeted and or bullied in the workplace, and in some instances you are, right? So repeated invalidations teaches your nervous system to brace for dismissal, and after a while you just stop speaking. I have legit been in environments where I don't think I've ever been like just completely shut down or ignored, but I felt like my input wasn't valued. And I also felt like, oh, I've had a manager that was super micromanaging. And if she felt like you were outshining her in any way, she would shut you down, and she would do it in a very disrespectful way. And she didn't care who was around. She'd say stuff like, well, I didn't really ask you for your input because you're not running this meeting. And really, you're just trying to contribute, And after a while, I got tired of challenging her. And it wasn't that I felt, well, I guess I did feel unimportant, but I felt like that job, that company, that role was no longer important to me. Thereby, they didn't deserve my input. So I stopped contributing. I guess they are now calling it quiet quitting, when you're not really engaged. You come there, you do just enough to not get fired. But when I think about that environment and how there were other people around me who her words were like lashes to them. Well, they were like lashes to all of us, but it seemed to affect different people in different ways. Um, I can only imagine that those people would have, if they were to look back or to equate the word trauma, I would bet that it would be that environment and that particular manager. So, what I would like us to do is to really talk about some of the ways that people can kind of combat that and some of the ways that they can heal themselves with regard to those types of experiences. Of course, the go-to and most obvious is
To
find
and
another
most
job. I don't know why it started repeating. Did you hear me repeating?
No,
I don't hear anybody.
Yeah, we
and
can't hear you, Antoine.
um okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, I apologize. Hey guys, so yeah, it can definitely be traumatizing when you are in a workspace, and especially if you're new or you're just afraid of your job being jeopardized if you speak up. And that's just a hard place to be in. However, I do think that the sooner you speak up and, you know, rectify that wrong, the better, right? Because, and you just have to have faith that everything's going to work out, because it's just going to get worse when we prolong the inevitable. When we prolong saying something, that person will continue to do that thing, and like you said, that'll just we start shutting down. It's either fight or flight, right? And the flight response is shutting down, like being there but not really there. I had a principal one time. She asked questions in the meeting, and she asked questions, but as soon as you gave the answer, she pretty much shot it down, right? And um or she already had in her mind what she wanted to do. And so we figured, everybody else, it was 10 of us, and so by the end of the year, we when she said something, none of us said anything. Because we had all had that experience of, oh, she just wanted to hear her, she
Her
really don't
self-talk.
care about what we said. Yeah. And she she loves to hear herself talk, and she wants to prove everybody else wrong and her to be right. And so we never jailed as a team because of her leadership style. And so sometimes
Yeah.
we have to go ahead and step up and say the tough thing, um, even if it's going. And I believe that most of the time, and I operate in that. So I'm not saying that I'm that Superman that's going to always speak up and say the right things, or stand up for myself, because I don't do that, but I need to practice that more. I was in a similar situations recently, and I didn't say anything. So I really need to work on that. But I'm definitely aware of it, and I'm aware that if I prolong it, it's just going to get worse, and it doesn't help the situation at all.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Anton, because I had similar experiences like that myself. It's like when the upper management, they already have it set in stone what they want to say in their head, and you might have a really valid opinion, and it gets shot down. You bring, because that happens all the time. Might have a good opinion, or maybe a different type of process, because that's the whole point of being at work when you're having meetings, when we're having these having internal meetings or whatever. You want to contribute. That's the whole point of the meetings. Like if you have a good idea, contribute. Um, but sometimes your ideas will get shot down, and then you'll feel kind of your self esteem will be kind of shot because I won't say at the first shot that your idea is getting shot down, but probably this if the second and third time does, that's when your that self esteem issue comes into play. And I would say one way to probably to combat that particular issue of your idea being shot down, uh, don't think of it as like you had a bad idea or anything like that. I'll say, think of it as like, okay, maybe they already have this process in place somewhere, or maybe someone already had the idea before I brought it here. But realize that you bringing up these different suggestions, someone's going to hear you out and it will get implemented somewhere. Now, I'm not saying that you will get the credit for it because sometimes you won't. It depends on the environment. But don't let that be like, man, I'm not getting the credit for this idea. Because I was in that same position before. Like, I'm not getting credit for what I'm bringing to the table. That's crazy. But then again, I had to figure out for myself and take a step back. And I'm like, well, at least they heard me and somebody's getting this implemented. But now I know that once this idea that I have and brought to the table was implemented, I'm able to take maybe those skills and those steps I took
Is Joe
to
gone
bring
or
this
is it just
process
me?
over. Uh, am I still here?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
What about Joe? I don't hear Joe.
Oh,
No, I can hear
hey.
Joe. I can hear both of you.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, I'm sorry if I cut him off then. Um,
Oh no, you're good.
No,
Uh, but I would say take those ideas and steps that you took to present your idea and make your own plan for like, or put it on your resume or something too as well to show that you are a process improvement type of person. You have been innovative, even though you didn't get credit for it. You can put that on a resume and say, hey, I suggested this process improvement or something at the job, and it was implemented a month or two down the road. You still can pivot from it.
yeah, I think that's huge, right? Even if it and even if it wasn't implemented, you can still highlight it on your resume. You can still put things like introduced thus and so to the team. Um, and anything else that you have come up with or suggested, whether it's implemented or not, you can still use it to your benefit. And there are some things that you can do with regard to safeguarding yourself, your emotions, your mental health, and being able to navigate this environment for as long as you're going to stay there. I would say that if you're in a toxic work environment, and that is not the easiest thing to do, uh, leave. And I know in this economy and the things that are going on, it may be a little bit challenging for some, a little more for others. But I think that the first thing that you should work on is an exit strategy. uh, because if you, number one, have, no, I'm not going to say if, because then that sounds like I'm saying, well, maybe you don't have suggestions or input that's valuable. When you are offering valuable input, or you're attempting to bring value to a team that does not want your input, does not value your input, doesn't mean that it's not valuable. I love to tell this story about value, because a lot of times we base our value on somebody else's valuation of us. No one needs to appraise you. You're not a house. Okay. And I understand that in the workplace, we get appraisals, we get performance reviews and things like that. I do understand that. But if you gave a child $1, and I'm talking about a child, a 3-year-old. If you gave a 3-year-old $1 and you gave a 3-year-old $100, and one in each hand, to that child, they have money. Neither holds any difference in value, right, to that child, because they just don't see the difference in the value of the dollar bills that they have in their hand, in the bills they have in their hand. But that dollar still only is valued at $1, that $100 is still valued at $100, whether the person holding it recognizes it or not. Make sense? So don't let somebody
Yes.
else determine whether or not you're valuable. You determine that. And anytime you're attempting to bring value, solve problems, create solutions, there's value. You may just have to find the environment that will welcome your value, what you bring to the table, your value add. So, another thing you can do is a mirror statement exercise, right? You can, when you're in a meeting and it's tense, or you've been shut down, or you've been ignored, or worse, someone has stolen your suggestion and claimed it as their own, and now
Yes.
it's the bee's knees. All kind of little traumatic, and even though it's your idea, not giving you credit for it or taking credit for it is another way that you're being devalued in that environment. So you can step out, you can go in the bathroom and say to yourself, just because they didn't hear me or hear it from me does not mean that I didn't add value, does not mean that I don't have value. Even when I'm not heard, my voice still matters, right?
Yes.
After every meeting, you can take a moment, if you felt silence, and grab a journal, or if you have a notepad. Most of us, when we enter a meeting at work, we take notes. Write in that notepad or that journal what your idea was, what the suggestion was, what the circumstance was that you felt that your solution was just that for that particular issue. And just save it for another time, maybe another team, maybe another job. But keep track of the great ideas that you have, especially if you work in a specific field. Like, I'm an instructional designer by trade. So some training module that I may not create with this particular team, it may serve me down the line somewhere else with another team. So always hold on to your ideas, even if in the environment you're in, they are not, they're not received in the way that you would like. And I
That
would also
that
say
is
after every meeting, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. Go ahead.
Go.
I thought you was finished.
Oh no, I was going to say I would just add that after every meeting, when you're writing down what it was, what that you couldn't actually articulate or get out, ask yourself how it made you feel, and then build your confidence back, because it does set you back. It does make you not want to speak up. And for some of us, we can opt out, we can quiet quit, we can not speak up in the role that we're in. But for some of us, speaking up is expected of us. Someone like a system admin, or those types of jobs where you absolutely have to make suggestions and you absolutely have to come up with solutions. That is your role, and everything you come up with is shut down. On top of what Antoine was suggesting with speaking up, maybe taking it up the chain of command, or hosting a meeting to get everyone on the same page, especially if your ideas are being stolen. I'm going to pass the mic, Antoine.
I love the idea of writing it down, um, because you're documenting um, what's happening during the meeting. Okay, and so sometimes we tell ourselves a story and we don't have all the facts. So at that time, when you're doing that, you're jotting down facts, right? You're jotting down what's happening. And once it becomes a pattern, then you know that, hey, this is a pattern. It wasn't just an oversight. You did it on the last meeting. I have it written down here. You did it the meeting before on such and such a date at such and such a time. This is what I said. I was interrupted prior to that talk. So when you start documenting, you know that you're coming from a factual standpoint, right? And it gives you more validation on making your point. And you're writing things down. You're like, hey, I'm not going crazy. I'm not assuming these things. This has happened 3 times. Now it's a pattern. And I think it needs to be addressed, but also be willing to listen how they respond to others in the setting as well. Write those things down. So just be very intentional about what's going on and how the meeting is run and what your experience is from it, right? Not just from your perspective, but how others, you may even ask questions to others like, how did that meeting go to you? What were some key takeaways? You don't really have to expose your train of thoughts at that time, but just getting feedback from others on how it went. And then if they say, "Oh, it was fantastic," I thought that was some great ideas. Then you can go on and say, "Okay, whose ideas are do you have a particular idea that you thought was great?" I'm just trying to get some feedback, and just go on a like a fact finding journey. And sometimes there's alliances in the room that you may notice that this particular person, they love to hear their ideas, but when you speak up, you're shot down or things like that. And so when you start documenting these things and you're coming from an open space, instead of a hurt space, it's very valuable to check our hearts. Like, what am I expecting? And should I really expect them to listen to me? Is this a open forum to talk, or is it just to receive directive? And some of those questions, you can write those questions down. And so when you have your meeting, it's like, okay, I just wanted to get clarity on the meeting that we just had. Was this meeting a meeting to get directives, or was it a meeting that we were to give feedback to, or our perspectives, on whatever the topic was, right? And so then when that person that you're talking to responds to you, then you can say, okay, well, I noticed when I spoke up, this is what happened to me. When Johnny spoke up, this is what happened to Johnny, right? And so you're taking notes, you're documenting, you're not just going off your emotions, you're stating facts of what happened. And then it's up to them if they're going to say, run and hide, or say, you know what, you got a valid point there. I'll watch that, because a lot of times we are on autopilot as people, and we don't realize what we're doing. And because we sit in silence, we never know what the other person's thought pattern is, because we so, I don't want to say afraid, but I think it is a form of fear to ask, especially from me. It's a form of fear. I can name it other types of things. Well, I just didn't want to upset the thing. It was fear for
Yes,
me.
I think you had it right there on point. Because that's how I feel too, especially when it's meetings. And I understand what the viewer was saying is like, how do you handle that? Uh, Especially in meetings where you feel like you have brought something to the table, and it kind of goes like, okay, who else got an idea? Who else got something? And then that that person within that circle or that click, work click, they bring the ideas like, oh yeah, we like this. Oh, everybody's up and roar hands and shoot, it's like almost like a festival going, a celebration. um, and and then you have to look at the perspective of the person who brought up their ideas like, well, wow, why? And Antoine, you said, you hit the head right there on the nail. Why is it that every meeting this particular group of people or this person is getting celebrated for ideas, and their ideas cannot be questioned? Because it seems like, well, I won't say seems, because it is, that when they bring something forward, nobody wants to question it. It goes through and it's done. Don't question the idea, because this particular person or this group of people who bring their ideas, we know they're solid. And that's truly unfair, and that is traumatizing because it's like, well, if I bring my idea, I either gets dissected or it gets questioned heavily, but their ideas don't. So I understand that could be trauma, and I do agree. Write everything down, and don't. And again, I have to say, don't always think that your idea was bad or anything like that, because, like Jay said, it might not be. This might not be the perfect team for you for those ideas, but your ideas are valid and they are good. So that's
Yeah,
something I will definitely
and
take away.
not your audience.
Yes, and I would definitely take that
Yeah.
away from anything is, hey, your ideas are good, write them down, keep them, and you could always approve them. So once you get a different audience, a different team that actually is more open and accepting of your ideas, that's where you can pivot to right there. And I will
100%.
say, and I was also piggyback off of the internal meetings that you talked about too, Antoine. Like, is this the meetings where we're just receiving these orders, what you want us to do, or is this an open format? Because those meetings I have been in before, it's supposed to be open format, but it's not. It's more like, we accept your opinion, but I'm going to tell you what we're going to do anyway. So it's like, why do
It's
you
a
want to hear our
directive, not
opinion?
a meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, so
And
why are
they
we
don't.
talking?
They don't.
And yes, and
Yeah,
that's one
definitely.
thing.
And you know,
Oh, my bad.
no. That's one thing you were
Oh,
saying.
and that's one thing that I'm working on myself to do is to, when we have those type of meetings, know when to chime in and say, "Hey, is this the meeting for we're actually giving feedback that's going to be listened, or not really listen, but find the right words to say that doesn't come across like,
What are we
um,
here for?
yeah, because you can encounter upper management that has that big head or that ego that will take that as attack, and now you're on their personal "I need to get you" list. So that's my experience. So it's more
I
like I
call it
have to work on
I
finding
call
the
it
right
the dartboard.
words. Hmm.
Yeah, you're on their dartboard. That's not what you want. And I think one of the
Yeah.
words you can say, I think was pretty clear. It's like, hey, just clarifying what we're meeting about. Is this a directives meeting where you guys are letting us know what's expected of the team, and we're to take note and carry those directives out, or is this a two-way conversation where you're looking for input and information from us, feedback from us? I think that is a respectful way of saying it, and it lets them know that you just want to make sure that you're on the same page that they're on. Just, and you can even say those words. We just want to, or I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page that you are on. This way, I feel like you show respect, right? Because managers, some are big on that. You know, they feel disrespected or challenged in any way. You can find yourself on the uh, dartboard, and that means that you have a target on your back, and anything and every little thing that you do can then become a reason for them to look for ways to be punitive in a way that they can justify. So that's one of the things. And, you know, I want to kind of piggyback off of what Antoine was saying also about boundaries and receipts, right? Writing down what you've noticed, collecting information, and then standing your ground when you need to. That's basically setting boundaries, you taking notes and getting feedback from others that were in the meeting, and having time and dates. And you don't have to put the time, but the date or the meeting that you attended, who was in attendance. It really is your receipt and your proof that, hey, I've been contributing, especially if at the end of 6 months, and then again at the year end, that you're going to be getting a review, especially from this person who tends to shut you down, and you then realize that in your review, it appears that you don't contribute to the team, or you don't have input, or, you know, whatever that looks like in that review, you have documentation that can combat that misinformation. And I had a manager that used to gaslight me all the time. Now, I was just telling, I think it was you, I was telling Joe the other day that people would ask me what my pet peeve was, and I didn't know what gaslighting was at the time. I didn't know it had a name, but I would always say, if you are doing something and I say that you're doing it and I call you on it and you pretend that you don't know what I'm talking about, like I'm crazy or like I'm making it up, that cooks my noodle. I now know that that is gaslighting. And I had a manager that used to do it. We would have a meeting, we'd have a conversation, and just the two of us. And then when we got in front of other people, or if there was somebody else who had to be a decision maker or weigh in on the conversation, she would say, I don't recall that. She wouldn't outright deny the existence of the meeting, but she would omit or pretend to not know what I was talking about in certain aspects of the meeting. And it would frustrate me to no end. So what I started doing, and I feel like this is a great way to make sure, number one, that the person that you're conversing with, especially if your input is on a one-on-one basis, that they are clear on what you communicated. Number two, that you are CYN. So what I started doing thereafter, and I'm talking about any time we had a conversation and it was just she and I would go back to my desk immediately and I would summarize what we talked about. Hey, Christy, it was great talking to you about thus and so, and I'm glad we had an opportunity to address XYZ, and I am happy to take the steps that we agreed upon, whatever those was. I would outline that and I would send it to her, and she would get up almost every time and come to my desk and reply to me. She wouldn't reply to the email, but she would come to my desk and give her response or her feedback. And guess what I would do? I would send her an email about the feedback that she gave me when she came to the desk. Thanks for stopping by my desk to clarify X, Y. Like, she hated it, but there was absolutely nothing she could do to stop me. She hated my guts, but she could not pin me against the wall. She couldn't say that I said something that I didn't, and she couldn't say that I didn't say something that I did, or she couldn't take credit for something that I did. I always covered myself that way. It got tiring and I eventually left, but until I did, that was how I CYA. That's how I covered myself. That's how I protected myself. And that's how I prevented her, and I will prevent anybody else to get a hold of it for gaslighting by doing that. I wanted to go into yourself and just reminding yourself that just because no one heard you or you feel that no one heard you doesn't mean there was no value in what you said. The reason I say to do that is that it builds trust, self-trust, right? Because somebody chipping away at your ideas all the time or disregarding your ideas, and this job because it's a check. But if you have a career goal in mind and there's some place you're trying to go within the company that may remove you from this party and you being subjected to them, then you definitely will to shake your confidence. I mean, you were hired for a reason. They hired you because you have the skill set for that job, and you have to remind yourself of that. So talking to yourself and reminding yourself that your voice is valuable, whether anybody implemented it, whether anybody heard, if this person dismissed it, it reminds your nervous system that you're still listening to yourself even when others aren't. And it helps you to continue to build your confidence about what it is you bring to the table. And the last thing I want to say, and I want to say that it was Antoine that said, maybe you can talk to some other people and get feedback. But what you're doing essentially is you're able to gauge whether someone else has had the same experience or the same observation with regard to how you're being treated. You may even have a few people that are allies that are brave enough and willing to be your speak up squad. So if you are getting that feedback from your cohorts and other people that were in the meeting, and you say, hey, and they say, hey, I noticed that she's always shutting you down, or he's always shutting you down, or they never really take your ideas into consideration. It's almost like when you talk, they don't really want to hear it. You could say to the person, hey, if I needed to have a conversation with somebody else about this experience, because it is wearing on me, would you be willing to just kind of chime in on my behalf? That's your speak up squad. And you'll get some people that are willing to do that for you in the workplace. So those are, some of the things that you can do to safeguard yourself in that environment, but also to heal the trauma that you're experiencing, to build your confidence back up. I think on some level we all experience the imposter syndrome, and having that happen to you, I feel like exacerbates that feeling that you may already be struggling with some areas in which you're not 100% confident in your ability to do the role, and that will take you down from the things you are confident about, because I don't know anybody that's 100% confident in what they're doing all the time with regard to anything in life.
You're right
So
about that.
those are some things that you can do to build your confidence, protect yourself, set boundaries, collect receipts, and even get support with a quote unquote speak up squad on your behalf.
I excuse me. I also wanted to add, which I forgot, it was one of you, either you were Joe or Jay, said something about, and you both may have touched on it, but setting the playing field when you're talking to somebody, safety is so important. And I got this from Crucial Conversations, and it talked about making the other person feel safe. And so when you speak up in the meeting, or you speak on the one-on-one calls, you say, hey, I want to be the best participant of the meeting because I feel that this is important for us to move forward. And so setting that common ground. And so therefore, that's why I'm asking this question, right? And so that person won't automatically be defensive when you ask your question or you make your statement. So always um, set the stage that they know where you're coming from and why you're coming that way, right? And so that they'll feel safe because everybody has the same fight or flight. They're gonna either try to come at you and this that and the other, but if they feel that, hey, I'm coming from a genuine place, I'm telling you I'm coming from a genuine place, and then if they still go left, then you realize, like, hey, okay, there's an issue here and you document that, right? um but you stated that, hey, we have a common goal that we're trying to accomplish in this meeting, and I want to make sure that I have clarity on what that goal is, and I'm in agreement with reaching that goal. And so the following questions that I have is to make sure that you know I'm well equipped and I know that this is the goal, and this is what it needs to, the input that I need to give. And so just leveling the playing field, if that person still throws a fit and stuff like that, or blows you off, that's just further documentation. And you definitely need to either go up to higher management or, start making that exit plan, as Jay was saying.
Any final words, Joe?
I think those are some good steps. So, just all in all, it's like, don't be afraid to speak up, and also what Antoine said, just like make sure you're on the same. Oh, let them know you're on the same page. Like, hey, you're coming to them from a place of like you wanting to grow, or this is a concern, but you just want to know what's going on. And I do believe coming from that place should, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of ease the mind of whoever you're speaking to. It's like, okay, you're not just coming for me, because you're not really coming for them, but you're just like, you notice these trends and you're just speaking up and saying, well, I do have ideas that I want to keep bringing to the meetings, but I feel like either they're um, necessarily not meant for this certain process. I don't always say process because that's what I do at my job, do a lot of processes. But maybe it's not meant for this particular process or subject at this time. But I want to know, where are we headed at, so I know where to my align my ideas for what we are trying to achieve. And just saying stuff like that is like, oh, so you know it kind of makes the other person think like, oh, so you do have ideas that you have been suggesting, and it's kind of like reaffirming, well, to them like, well, we got this project here. It kind of gives you more information. It's kind of like you're throwing your fishing line out there and trying to get some more information so you know how to work it. But I think these are some definitely some good steps to go about in trying to not feel like your ideas are being stolen, or if they are being stolen, these are good steps to take to ensure that, hey, to make sure if this is something continuously happening, and then you able to make your plan from there. If you're gonna pivot to another team or make your exit strategy altogether.
Awesome. And I will also add that I feel like it's important every week to kind of write down three things you did well. Well, I think it's important to celebrate your wins because there's power in what you say about yourself. So anytime you can recognize your wins, because sometimes you can perceive your wins as whether or not someone else feels like you've won. So write down three things that you did well. I don't care how small it is or how small you perceive it to be. A win is a win is a win. And even if nobody else acknowledges it, you do it for yourself. Because if nobody else celebrates you, who will? There's a song out right now on social media everywhere. Everybody's doing a little dance to it called Hype Me Up. And if you listen to the song, she's telling people to hype her up. She like, hype me up, hype me up. But if you listen, after she says that a couple of times, she's like, I'll hype me up. I'm going to do it. I'll hype myself up. And sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes, and Antoine, I'm sure you know this song. Sometimes you got to encourage yourself. You got to speak victory during the test. Sometimes you got to encourage yourself. So I
Yes.
feel like these tools aren't just about being heard, but they're about healing the hurt of not being heard, right? So we try to give you as much information as possible to combat this system and this issue from a number of different ways. Try one, try them all. But if you do, we would absolutely love to hear how they helped, if they helped in ways that we can expound on any help that we've offered you. If you feel like, okay, yeah, that kind of helped me, but I'm still kind of stuck in this area, DM us, tag us, send us a voice note for future episodes. And that goes for anybody else that's listening. If you're having an issue, you have a challenge, you're suffering a trauma, or you're trying to read through grief or just the everyday ins and outs of this world, please reach out. Feel free to DM us. Feel free to contact us on Instagram. Go to our website contact pages. We are definitely here for you, because even if in those spaces you are not heard, you will always be heard and you will always matter to us. So that's all I have. I don't know if you guys got some last words, but I'm throwing up my little heart. I'm done.
No, I think that, like you said, we should definitely practice. One of the, I guess, final things is always look at how you feeling, right? And jot those things down. How did that make you feel? And and start asking yourself questions. Why did that make you feel that way? And kind of dissecting, know what's going on with you. Everybody needs to be self-aware, right? And knowing, like, the question that you brought was very good. You said how you felt, and you said, so that's acknowledging that, and just being brave enough to put the question out, is very good. And so that acknowledgement is great. Just keep it up in every area of your life, and then just continue to move forward and get strategies to assist you in improving and practicing doing better, speaking up for yourself.
And my last thought is never let anyone diminish your light, no matter what that goes on, it be at the workplace, outside the workplace. You know what you bring to the table, and hell, if people are stealing your ideas, they know what kind of light, what kind of idea or brilliant person you are because you thought of the idea before they did. So you should also take that as like, you know what? My ideas are so good, you had to steal them. I see you over there, but don't let it get you down. And another thing I could also say is, again, if
Hey,
you feel
show.
like you're, uh,
No, sorry
say that
about
again.
that. I had a
Oh,
little
you good?
background.
And if you feel like you're not appreciated at your workplace that you're at, take your brilliant ideas, put them in a book, and you move on to somewhere else, because I bet you other people will be just running to the lines like, hey, what you got? We want to know more about your ideas and your processes, and what you got, something creative going on. So don't ever let where you're at diminish your light. Always keep growing, no matter what. But again, take these steps, use them all, like Jay said, Antoine said, and let us know. And we're always going to be here for you.
Definitely. So thank you both, Antoine and Gil, for joining us and giving your super, super intelligent wisdom. I so appreciate it. I know they do. And thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Healing Help Desk. Whether you have been silently shrinking, and I can't even talk about your shrinking, silently shrinking in rooms where your voice deserves to not only be heard, but to echo, and you've been carrying the weight of unspoken words, know this: you are not alone and you are not invisible. We see you, we hear you, and we are here to help you heal, to give you the tools to heal. So until next time, take care of yourself and remember, healed people heal people. Bye, y'all.
Later, everyone.
That the heroes deep within, in. You can quantify what you tune in to realize that the heroes deep within, in. Journey to your center.